You know, it's a really funny thing. You can have a brilliant, wildly complex sense of humor in your native language,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But then the second you try to introduce yourself in English to, I don't know, a new colleague or friend, your brain completely panics.
It just totally shuts down.
Right. It shuts down. Suddenly, your rich, nuanced personality just evaporates, and you're reduced to this one-dimensional robot stammering out like, I am nice!
Yes, the classic, I am nice.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced that? Like, you know you're reliable, you know you have depth, but under the pressure of a second language, the vocabulary just
It
vanishes.
just disappears.
And you're left staring at the other person, completely frozen.
Yeah, and, it is a universally frustrating experience for language learners. I mean, everybody goes through it. And there's actually a really fascinating neurological reason for it, too.
Wait, really? It's neurological.
Yeah, it's not just you being bad at English.
Yeah.
When you're put on the spot in a non-native language, your brain experiences a sort of mild fight or flight stress response.
Oh, wow. Like an actual panic response.
Exactly. And that cognitive load temporarily blocks access to your higher level vocabulary. So it's
Yeah.
not that you don't know the words, it's that your brain has locked them in a vault that you just can't access in that split second.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better. I mean, it's like you're trapped in a conversational box and you have the key, but you just can't find it in your pockets.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
So today, that is exactly what we're tackling. We are doing a deep dive into an English learning guide that is completely dedicated to describing your personality.
It's such a great resource.
It really is. And our mission today is to extract the absolute most useful vocabulary and natural phrasing from this material so you can sound confident and authentic, not like you're reciting a grammar textbook.
Right. Sounding human is the goal here.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. If our brain naturally wants to freeze and lock up our vocabulary, how do we actually bypass that and sound like ourselves?
Well, we need to bypass that panic by completely changing our strategy. I mean, in this deep dive, we're going to look at why mastering just a few foundational traits is actually better than trying to memorize the dictionary.
Which is such a relief.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to explore the specific structural tricks that native speakers use to sound human rather than robotic. We'll test these out in a real-world roleplay, and finally we'll dissect the psychological traps that cause most learners to stumble.
I am so ready for this. Now, the source material starts with a very straightforward definition of personality. It calls it the way you usually think, feel, and act.
Simple and to the point.
Right, it's what makes you, you. And to express this, the guide gives us a set of primary building blocks. These are like the core positive traits. So we have friendly, kind, funny, patient, honest, and confident.
The classics.
The classics, yeah. Now, we all know what these words mean. Our listeners don't need a dictionary definition for funny or patient. But here is where I get a little tripped up.
Okay, what's the issue?
Well, if I'm at, say, a professional networking event, isn't walking up to someone and simply saying, I am kind or I am friendly, gonna make me sound like an absolute beginner? I mean, doesn't that just prove the point that I lack advanced vocabulary?
So what's fascinating here is that the source material actually proves the exact opposite of that.
Really? How so?
Well, there's an enormous temptation, especially for advanced learners, to reach for complex psychological jargon just to prove they're fluent. They want to say things like they're gregarious or magnanimous.
Oh, sure, the big SAT words.
Right. But when you're nervous, reaching for a 5-syllable word maximizes your cognitive load. You are way more likely to mispronounce it or just use it in the wrong context entirely.
Which just makes the freeze up worse.
Precisely. And more importantly, using clear foundational words correctly is actually much more powerful for building human connection. I mean, connection is the entire goal of speaking,
Oh,
right?
right. You want the other person to actually understand you.
Exactly. When you use a simple word like honest or patient, your listener immediately understands you without having to process complex vocabulary themselves. You essentially remove the friction from the conversation.
Okay, I see what you're saying. It feels a bit like an artist learning to use primary colors. Like, you have to be comfortable throwing down red, blue, and yellow before you can paint a masterpiece.
That's a really great analogy.
But there is a gap here. I mean, nobody actually introduces themselves by just barking out adjectives like, I am friendly, I am funny.
No, of course not.
Because that's the robot problem all over again. So if we're sticking with these simple foundational words, how do we actually weave them together so we don't sound completely unnatural?
So that is the exact problem the guide addresses next. And the secret isn't upgrading the vocabulary, it's upgrading the structure around the vocabulary.
The structure.
Right.
Okay.
Native speakers almost never use a personality trait in isolation. They use what I like to call structured vulnerability.
Structured vulnerability. I like that.
Yeah, they add details and contrast to show the different sides of who they are.
Oh, right. The source introduces a specific method for this that I actually found incredibly clever. It's the but once technique.
Yes, the but once technique is fantastic.
So instead of just saying, I am friendly, the guide suggests saying something like, I'm friendly, but I'm a little shy at first, or, I'm usually quiet, but once you know me, I talk a lot.
Let's break down exactly why that works so well neurologically and conversationally. The word but introduces a contrast. It immediately tells the listener, hey, I'm a multidimensional human being. Under certain conditions, I am this, and under other conditions, I am that.
It sets an expectation, right?
Exactly.
If I say, I'm friendly, but I'm shy at first, I'm giving you permission to not think I'm rude if I'm quiet for the next 10 minutes.
Yes. It's a preemptive social cushion. You're managing their expectations. And the word once is even more brilliant. Once you know me, that introduces a timeline. It implies this sort of journey that the listener can go on with you.
It's an invitation. It's like saying, if you put in the time and effort to get to know me, you'll unlock this completely different talkative side of my personality.
It is entirely an invitation.
Mhm.
And to make this technique even richer, the source suggests pairing these concepts with synonyms to build out a more descriptive picture, but without adding difficult vocabulary.
Oh, right. Like how they pair being easygoing with being relaxed, meaning someone who doesn't let small problems upset them.
Exactly. Or they also pair hardworking with being creative,
Right.
which the guide defines as just having lots of ideas.
Yeah, or they contrast being quiet with being talkative or feeling comfortable. Like, I'm confident at work, but I'm really nervous when speaking in front of large crowds.
Which is such a deeply relatable sentence.
It really is. Everyone feels that way.
And this raises an important question about how we communicate our identity. As the source notes, nobody is just one thing. Embracing these descriptive contrasts is exactly what makes spoken English sound fluent.
Because it's honest.
Yes. When you openly admit that you're confident in one area, but nervous in another, you are showing that vulnerability we talked about. And vulnerability is the absolute quickest way to build rapport in any language.
So, by combining incredibly simple words like confident and nervous, using a basic structural pivot like the word but, you're communicating a very complex adult psychological concept. You don't need a PhD level vocabulary to express a nuanced personality.
The nuance is entirely in the contrast, not the dictionary definition.
Okay, so we have our primary colors, our foundational traits, and we know how to mix them using structural contrasts like but and once to create that vulnerability and depth. Let's actually see what this sounds like in practice. Let's step into the role play laboratory.
Oh, I think that's essential because, reading about conversational flow is very different from actually hearing it.
Right. So we'll do a mental role play for you, the listener, following a scenario straight from the source. It's meeting a new classmate or colleague for the first time. I'll be person A, and I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
Sounds good.
And let's try to make this sound like a real conversation, not a stiff script. Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hey, nice to finally meet you in person. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. Well, I'd say I'm generally friendly and pretty easygoing. I enjoy meeting new people, though I will admit sometimes I'm a little quiet at first. But I usually become pretty talkative once I feel comfortable. How about you?
Oh, I totally understand that. I'm usually kind and organized, and I try to be patient, but honestly, sometimes I worry way too much about getting things perfectly right.
Okay, let's pause right there and step out of the role play. What did you notice about that interaction?
Well, what really stands out to me is a golden nugget from the source material. It's that natural conversations aren't just about speaking your truth. They are about responding to the other person's truth.
Yes, the response is key.
But I actually have to push back here for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
In that role play, when you said you were quiet at first, I responded with, I totally understand that. And the guide heavily emphasizes using these short phrases like, I understand, me too, or I can see that. Right. But wait, if I'm just saying me too to everything, isn't that just a conversational crutch? Like, am I really practicing my English if I'm just volleying back these two-word recycled phrases? It feels a little bit like I'm cheating.
That is a very common fear among learners, but it's totally a misconception. Those active listening phrases are not crutches. They are vital mechanisms for cognitive pacing.
Cognitive pacing, what do you mean by that?
Okay, think about the immense brain power it takes to listen to a foreign language, translate it, comprehend the meaning, formulate your own original complex thought, translate that back into English, and then speak it aloud with correct pronunciation.
It's exhausting just hearing you list it.
Right. If you try to do that for every single sentence in a conversation, your brain will overheat and you will freeze. So active listening phrases like me too or that's great, they give your brain a micro break.
A micro break.
Yeah, you don't have to construct a complex sentence. You just drop in a pre-packaged acknowledging phrase.
Ah, so it keeps the rhythm of the conversation going without putting the entire burden of content generation on me in that exact second.
Exactly.
It's like volleying in tennis. I don't have to hit a grand slam topspin winner every single time the ball comes over the net. Sometimes I just gently tap it back with an I understand, which lets the rally continue while I catch my breath.
That is a perfect analogy. And looking back at our role play, those gentle taps serve a dual purpose. They buy you time, but they also validate the other person.
Validate them, right.
Yeah, because if someone takes a risk and admits they are shy, and you just stare at them in silence while you formulate this huge grammatical response.
They feel super awkward.
Yes. Saying, I can see that, instantly validates their vulnerability. So again, simple English proves to be the most effective tool for connection.
It completely reframes how I think about a conversation. I mean, I don't have to be delivering a monologue, but that brings up another challenge. Personalities aren't static. We change over time. If I'm just using these foundational words to describe who I am right now, how do I explain to someone that I'm actually trying to improve? Like, how do I describe a changing personality?
This is where we move from just stating facts to actually telling a story. And human beings are hardwired to connect through narrative. The source gives us two very specific tools for expressing growth, and those are the concept of becoming and the concept of past states.
Right, like using the phrase, I used to be. So you might say, I used to be really shy, and then you pair it with the dynamic word becoming, as in, I used to be shy, but now I'm becoming more confident.
Yeah.
I love the word becoming. It implies a process. It takes the pressure off of having to be perfectly confident right this second.
It really does. And to illustrate the power of this narrative structure, the source includes this wonderful listening story about a character named Daniel. And Daniel's story really encapsulates the psychology we've been unpacking today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you break Daniel's story down for us?
Certainly. So in this story, Daniel describes himself as currently friendly and cheerful. But he notes that when he was younger, he used to be very shy. And speaking English was incredibly difficult for him. It completely terrified him.
Like it does for so many of us.
Exactly. However, he practiced every single day. And now he says he's becoming much more confident. Crucially, he admits he still makes mistakes when he speaks, but he views himself as patient because he never stops trying.
It's such a brilliant little narrative. I mean, he uses all the simple words we talked about: friendly, cheerful, shy, confident, patient. He uses the contrast of the past and the present, but the genius of it is the vulnerability.
That's the key.
By admitting he still makes mistakes, he makes himself incredibly likable. You immediately want to root for Daniel.
Exactly. He isn't claiming to have perfect grammar. He's claiming to have a growth mindset. But speaking of making mistakes, the source does urgently highlight a very specific, very common grammatical trap that learners fall into when trying to describe their emotional state. And we definitely need to dissect why it happens.
Oh, yes. The dreaded sympathy trap. The guide is very explicit about this. It says, under no circumstances should you say, I am very sympathy.
Right. It's a classic error. And it happens because of how our brains handle translation. When you want to express that you care about someone's feelings, your brain scans for the English equivalent of that concept and grabs the most recognizable root word, which is sympathy.
Right.
The problem is, sympathy is a noun, it's not an adjective.
Yeah.
Saying I am sympathy is like saying I am sadness or I am anger.
It just seems weird. You want the adjective form, which is sympathetic. So you should say I am sympathetic. But okay, here's the issue I have with that.
Yeah.
Even if you know the grammar rule, in the heat of the moment, trying to quickly recall and pronounce sympathetic with all its syllables, I mean, that's exactly what causes that cognitive overload we talked about at the beginning.
And the authors of the guide clearly understand that, which is why they offer a foolproof, incredibly elegant alternative. If you want to convey that trait, skip the difficult adjective entirely and just use an action phrase. Just say, I care about other people.
I care about other people. It's so simple.
It is brilliant because it completely bypasses the brain's grammar-checking anxiety. It is grammatically simpler, it is impossible to misunderstand, and frankly, it sounds much warmer and more authentic than claiming you are sympathetic.
I completely agree. Which leads us perfectly into the final and perhaps most important piece of strategy from the source material. It's the less is more rule.
A vital rule.
The guide explicitly warns against trying to memorize a list of 20 new personality adjectives today. Instead, they say, learn 5, just 5, and use them every single day.
And we connect this back to the bigger picture of cognitive load. Trying to memorize 20 adjectives is just a recipe for disaster in a real-time conversation.
It's exactly like overpacking a massive suitcase for a quick weekend trip.
Oh, I love this comparison.
You know what I mean? You cram 20 different outfits in there because you think you might need them. But when you get to airport security and the agent asks for your passport, you freeze. You're digging through this giant heavy bag, tossing out shirts and shoes, sweating, while the line behind you gets angry.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, your brain freezes because the cognitive load of searching through the giant suitcase literally blocks your physical ability to just hand over the passport.
That is a highly accurate representation of what happens in your working memory. You are mentally digging through 20 complex adjectives, gregarious, magnanimous, introverted, while the person you're talking to is just standing there waiting for you to finish your sentence.
Exactly. But if you pack a light suitcase, if you only bring 5 foundational words, it's like keeping your passport in your front pocket. You don't have to search. It's right there. You can just hand it over.
That is what I call strategic cognitive offloading. Language learning is fundamentally an iterative process. It's about laying a solid foundation and walking over it again and again.
Right.
Deeply understanding how to deploy 5 words, knowing their synonyms, knowing how to contrast them using but or once, knowing how to validate someone else with active listening. All of that is infinitely more valuable than superficially recognizing a list of 20 words on a flashcard.
Pack a light suitcase. Take your 5 favorite words. You will travel through the conversation so much faster.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've covered some really fascinating ground today. Let's do a quick recap of the mechanics we've unpacked for everyone. We started by acknowledging that cognitive overload makes us freeze, which is why we must master our foundational primary color words. Things like friendly, kind, patient, honest, confident.
Right, the basics.
Then we learned how to avoid sounding like a robot by adding natural structure, using the but once technique to create vulnerability and depth.
And we tested that out in our role play, proving that active listening and simple responses like I understand are actually vital tools for pacing your brain during a conversation.
We looked at how to express personal growth using narrative tools like becoming and used to be. We learned to avoid the sympathy trap by bypassing the complex adjective entirely and simply saying, I care about other people. And finally, we explored the less is more strategy, keeping our mental suitcase packed only with the 5 essential words we need to confidently engage.
That's a solid toolkit.
So what does this all mean? It means that you, the listener, do not need to memorize a dictionary to be deeply interesting in English. You already have the exact tools you need right now to share your authentic self with the world. You just need to strategically mix the colors you already have.
And to help you put this strategy into practice immediately, we want to issue you the specific challenge laid out in the source material.
Oh, yes.
The challenge. Sometime today, we want you to describe yourself using 3 simple personality words. For example, I'm friendly, I'm hardworking, but I'm a little shy. And then add 1 longer sentence about how you're growing. Something like, but I'm becoming more confident because I practice every day.
Try saying it to a friend, or honestly, just say it out loud to yourself in the car, in the mirror. Just bypass that mental freeze and get the words out into the air.
And as you take on that challenge and practice combining these descriptive words to explain your personality, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
When you are standing there, navigating the stress of a second language and searching for the right words, are you simply translating the personality you already have in your native language?
Where?
Or does the very act of speaking this new language, of pushing through that blank stare and claiming these new structural tools for yourself, actually help you build a slightly new, more resilient version of who you are?
Oh, I absolutely love that. Maybe you aren't just translating yourself, maybe you're building a new you. Keep practicing, keep packing that light suitcase, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.